everyone, and welcome to the Iron Canon podcast, your home for in-depth discussion on lore, the High Republic, and the whole canon of the galaxy far, far away. My name is Matthew. I'm joining you from Underworld North Studio here in Toronto, and as always, every week, I'm joined from across the continent by your friend and mine, Mr. Joel Davis. Joel, how are you doing this week?
Good, although I had a mini panic attack when I didn't see like the little iBook icon. And I'm like, oh my god, why is nothing coming up? And it's like, oh no, wait,
Right.
fine. It took a few seconds.
It's fine. It's fine. There you go. You know how it is here on the StreamYard, here on the internet. Anyway, this week. So last week, I should say. We talked all about the Jedi and their relatability in our world, I should say. This week we're following that right up with some in-universe commentary, the Jedi, the Force itself, and how Normies, non-Force users, relate to them. We also dive into some comics news and look at the new Outlaws DLC. We got a whole bunch of things going on here at the Iron Canon podcast. First off, let's get the plugs out of the way off the top. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Threads at Iron Canon Pod, EYEONCANONPOD. More importantly, we've made the leap. We're doubling up, we're tripling up, we're quadrupling up. IronCanon.bisky.social over on the Butterfly app on Blue Sky. We've made the leap. I've personally made the leap. Joel, you've made the leap personally too, right? To Blue Sky.
Yeah, I made the leap, even though I don't really use it. I'm just mostly using it for our podcast.
Yeah, so that means I think Iron Canon Blue Sky is probably the most up to date platform for us. Yeah, I'm still on the Bird app, but I'm doubling up on the Bird app myself too. So we'll check that out there. But yeah, definitely join in on the Blue Sky fun. It seems to have taken off in light of recent events, and so gonna keep that rolling there. Yeah, it's fun. It's a good group over there. Interesting to see how it compares and contrasts to Threads Fate. We'll see. Anyways, enough of that. Enough of real world stuff and real universe stuff. All that, I'll keep that going on. We're probably part of the Star Wars Underworld podcast network, and here on the Underworld YouTube channel, we've got memberships, we got super chats. And if you do comment, we'll get to it for sure. In some way, shape, or form. If you super chat, we'll get to it immediately. We'll get there. We're grateful for any support you can provide, offer to the channel. And just showing your love, but material financial support is welcome as well. Also, the Underworld Discord server down in the description. There's a minty fresh link that will get you a role. I guess, do they still call them roles in the Discord server? I don't know if they call them that anymore, but you go into our Discord server to chat about Star Wars, chat about Star Trek, chat about Marvel, chat about who knows what else, whole bunch of things. And and so, family events, fun events, not family events necessarily, but fun events. What's been going on recently?
Yes. What did we do?
The Discord, like the
yes,
there was a game night, right?
No, last week we watched the Lego Star Wars Holiday Special, which was a lot of fun. Lego and Star Wars. And the week before that, was it a movie night? No, that was a game night. So the week before that was a game night. I'm not sure what we're doing this week. I have to make some arrangements, but be on the lookout for something maybe Friday.
Yes.
And of course, we also have Thanksgiving turned out for everybody.
That's
true.
Yes. That's right. There's this thing called late Thanksgiving that's happening on Thursday, apparently. Who knew? No, I'm just kidding. You all knew. I knew. Also, do you want to maybe talk about some sadder news with
Oh, yes. Yeah. Also on our Discord, there is a GoFundMe to help our good friend and fellow community member Jesse Bennett, who's unfortunately his house has burned down. He's doing okay. He's got some friends to help him out, but any support could be useful. Spread the word. Go to GoFundMe on the Discord. It's pinned. One of the pinned areas in the guest content. So anything can help. So please help our good friend Jesse out.
Yeah, there you go. That's the thing is we're not out here to make a name for ourselves. We're here to gather people around Star Wars, and when one person in the community is struggling, we all want to chip in and care and help out. So check that out. I think future episodes will have a link to the GoFundMe in the description. So yeah, but and starting Wednesday, I'll make sure I do that for Tractor Beam. But speaking of Tractor Beam, there's a segue. Tractor Beam comics reviews right here on the Underworld YouTube channel. Sorry, Underworld YouTube channel, Underworld Twitch, and Iron Cannon Twitch. Yeah, Wednesdays are for comics. Comics are for Wednesdays. Every week, usually Chris Abbott and I talk about the books that came out this week. He's got this thing called Late Thanksgiving on Thursday, and so he has to be away Wednesday night. So I'm gonna fly solo. Here we had Thanksgiving in October. I was in New York for it. There we go. Yeah. So this Wednesday, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific, I'll fly solo with Battle of Jakku, Republic Under Siege #2. That should say #2. Sorry. No, you know what? I completely forgot to copy what that is. That is Republic Under Siege #2, How Republic Adventures Dispatches from the Occlusion Zone #2, and Echoes of Fear #3. Let me fix that for you. Joel, in the meantime, you've been following Battle of Jakku. How are you liking so far?
Oh, I am quite enjoying it. I saw the preview for next week, so I'm excited for that. I really like it. There's a couple little continuity issues of stuff not lining up with the Aftermath book. A couple little stuffs here and there, but overall, I really enjoyed it, and I think it's really shaping up to be some interesting stuff moving forward.
So we're good. I won't spoil the ending of issue #1 of Republic Under Siege #1, but it's So that ending was a fun ending that we kind of expected, but fun nevertheless. Echoes of Fear. If you read a High Republic comic, it's Echoes of Fear by George Mann. Anyway, check that out. Wednesday, I'll be flying solo there. And then one last bit of plugs here. Got to mention this. If you prefer audio only podcasts, which most people still do, a lot of people still do. I still listen to audio only podcasts on Spotify and Apple. If those are more your speed, we're on Spotify and Apple. We're back, I should say, on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. So check that out. Look for Ion Cannon Podcast. I think just Ion Cannon will have our old episodes that from when I wasn't able to actually upload them a while back, whole behind the scenes whatever thing. So yeah, Iron Cannon Podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts is there, ready for to go into your ears. And also Track Green has its own feed on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. I believe Apple's up. I believe the Apple's is set up. I have to check that again. But yeah, definitely. Please do check that out. Let us know if you prefer audio. If you're more into that, and then definitely do check that out. All right. That's the plugs for now. We'll pick them back up at the end. But for now, yeah, let's dive right into our week in Star Wars. What you got for us, Joel?
This week's a bit of a spoiler, so keep the week of Star Wars thing up until I'm done. Okay. For the Star Wars Outlaws DLC.
Well, I got this thing here, so it's fine.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah. Which I haven't watched, but go ahead and spoil. It's fine.
Oh, it's a fun little DLC. It's just a typical mission, team up with Lando and all that good stuff. But what I found really interesting though was the villain plot. Because it's the villain of the DLC, the governor, the Imperial governor, and his whole reasoning is, and he wants to acquire a moon for himself, and the reason is because he has a bookkeeper who he told to run the numbers, and basically the bookkeeper says, yeah, the Empire's going to lose. Empire's on the decline. This is before Endor. Empire's on the lose. This governor's like, okay, the Empire is in decay. They're going to lose the war regardless. Right. The math says so. I got to get ready for the post-Empire era. So he's getting all his resources, and he gets some weapon stuff too. And he's going to ship it all to this moon, and basically okay, I got to get it all ready. And then once shit hits the fan, I can form my own government and get ready for the post-Imperial era. So why I thought this was fascinating was this is also something that Rise and Fall of the Empire was going into as well. Was if you watch just the original trilogy, you see Endor. It's like, okay, the Empire's still around. They got a new Death Star. Like they're still the all-powerful forces. And then the Emperor's dead. And then it all goes to heck. But what I like about the DLC is something that Rise and Fall of the Empire, the book goes into as well. Is like, oh no, even before Endor, the Empire was in decay. Like a lot of people were thinking, like, oh yeah, Raiden's coming on the wall. Sooner or later, the Empire's going to crumble. It's not a matter of if, it's just a matter of when. And I really think that's interesting that this game playing on that idea with this imperial governor who's like, oh yeah, I see the writing on the wall. It's only a matter of time. I gotta get ready for the post-imperial era. And I don't know. I just think that's just an interesting addition of just trying to say, like, hey, the Empire, even before Endor, was in pretty rough shape. And it's just a matter of time before it finally just collapsed under its own weight and bad choices and decay and rot. So I like that. I thought that was a fun little story twist to the DLC. Overall, DLC was pretty fun. Just looked like story-wise, but that was my takeaway.
How long? I'm guessing you watched some playthroughs. How long were they?
Oh, like an hour.
Oh, yeah. So yeah, I'll ask Chris Abbott if he thought it was worth the money he paid, because I'm pretty sure he played it too. That's interesting for two reasons. First off, we know the original Outlaws has, in a maybe in a bit of a smaller scale. Bib Fortuna. I'm forgetting his name. Bib Fortuna angling for take over Jabba's job. Once possibly when Jabba's gone. So they're just another example of that. This game setting up, things that will happen after Return of the Jedi, even before. Yeah, and then the larger scale point you're making here, that Return of the Jedi really, we really see, and it really works on the political level. Obviously, it works on the emotional, personal level, and the cosmic force level, force gobbly level. But it works on the political level because at this point, everything is coalesced into Empire and Rebellion. Right, the Empire is partly because the Empire is just consolidated and nationalized so many things. So many of these underworld groups, crime syndicates, have gotten into hot water with the Empire, and the Empire is taking over their turf, which I think and partly we see. I don't know if we see that in Outlaws, but we see it in in the Crimson Dawn, Crimson Reign trilogy. Speaking of Jesse, how's it going, Jesse? How you doing? Hopefully things are going okay. We Jesse, while you're there, if you want to put in the info for the Kickstarter, or the GoFundMe rather, not the Kickstarter, feel free to do that. But yeah, hopefully, yes, we're pulling for you there. We're hoping for a good turnaround. Anyway, what was I saying? Yeah, and also thanks for joining us. More importantly, or also as well, I should say. What was I saying? Yeah, how the Empire, it really consolidated all this power in the underworld, and the Empire thrived on the underworld being able to be free and make chaos, and that here it can't, because again, either they've gotten into hot water. These syndicates have gone to hot water with the Empire and been taken over, or in response, they flock to the rebellion and bolster the rebellion. And of course, the Empire's oppressed all these people, all these planets, and so like Leia said, the more you tighten your fist, the more solar systems slip through your fingers. So, yeah, I mean, we don't really think about the Empire's decline. Well, I guess we do a little bit think about it being inevitable. Obviously, Chris Kemshall has, aka Beaumont Kin. And then of course, the corruption, decay in terms of just it's no longer a meritocracy; it's entirely a plutocracy at this point. So,
I mean, even Thrawn foresaw the corruption destroying the Empire. Yeah. That was way before even the first Death Star. So it's like even he sees the writing on the wall. Speaking of Crimson Dawn.
First of all good, Jesse. Don't worry about it. Take your time. Do what you got to do. Sorry, go ahead.
Speaking of Crimson Dawn, in Rise and Fall of the Empire, one of the things it says is that, how in the Vader comic, Vader's hunting all those Crimson Dawn agents?
Yeah.
Well, apparently, the Empire's hunting down all these Crimson Dawn agents, but because it's the Empire, they're not just hunting down Crimson Dawn agents, they're like just purging anybody they think is a threat, even if it's like a loyal Imperial. Like, it's like a red scare. It's like, oh man, Crimson Dawn agents, So it's like so they're getting rid of more of their great men, and like the morale in the military. Like by the time you get to Endor, you get like the morale in the military just retired. Yeah. We're sick of this. Emperor Palpatine and Vader doing all this weird stuff. Can't we just win? And it's like everyone's just so sick of them at this point. Like there's no loyalty. It's just like we're just done at this point. Yeah. So that's another inclusion of decay that is the rot of the Empire.
So interesting, yeah. It runs the numbers on the Empire, and the numbers run out eventually. Yep. Yeah. And that's another real world thing. All empires fall. All empires decay. We're seeing it in front of our eyes. We saw it a few weeks ago. I mean, that's the last gasp of make America great again is make it the world power again, and that's simply not going to happen. China and Russia are I mean, China's GDP is.
No, I've heard they're kind of in decline too.
They
So
might be in decline too. The
everybody's in
Soviet
decline.
Union was in decline.
I think everybody's in decline.
The
Honestly,
British Empire just gave up. I mean, actually, is an interesting parallel. The British Empire just gave up.
They ran out of money.
We can't afford this.
And willpower.
We don't want another American Revolution. So here you go. Here you go, Canada. Here you go, India. Although that was more complicated, but
2 world wars.
Yeah. So that happens too. Anyway, so very interesting. Any more thoughts on Outlaws? Or I'm sure in a week and a half I'll ask Chris to give us the full rundown. But
oh no, I just thought that was the most interesting part of the story and kind of incorporating that little aspect of lore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there you go. Mine you see down there Saturday morning live action cartoons. Mine will be more like a next week in Star Wars, because for some reason, just randomly, Cineplex, which is the main movie chain, kind of wannabe Alamo something or other, got the wannabe AMC, whatever, got the permission, I guess, from Lucasfilm to do this. I think it's a family event to basically show Skeleton Crew, the first 2 episodes of Skeleton Crew, on Saturday at 10 a.m. So it's good 2.5 days before the episode drops, 3 days before the episode drops. So by Monday, I'll have seen the episode. I promise I won't spoil anything, obviously, to me you're talking about. But I mean, what this event really gets me think of is just how kid-friendly the show is going to be, just how it's going to appeal to this younger generation that hasn't really, I mean, it's gotten a bit of Bad Batch, like lately at least, gotten a bit of Bad Batch. It's gotten maybe it's gotten Young Jedi Adventures, although those are maybe too young. Like, this is a bit older for Young Jedi Adventures. Like, this is going to be something that that parents and kids can take their kids to. I'm gonna take my mom to it. Up in suburbia, but I'll be curious to see who actually comes out to this. But it's 10 a.m. on a Saturday, so more likely be a kid thing. That they're targeting this to younger audiences. That's telling. I think it's gonna be there are gonna be a lot of, we talk about self-insert characters, point of view characters. I think all these
self-insert characters to some extent.
Yeah, well, I think all these kids are going to be characters are going to be these self-insert characters, and hopefully take us on a journey. I mean, that's what the trailers already suggest, but that's they're doing this event. So I'll probably next week give a very non-spoiler eyes on the screen, and then I promise I won't spoil it. Again, it's me who's talking here. I hate spoilers, except for I don't mind the Outlaws thing. But then of course, starting in on not next week, the week after, or whenever we're able to record. I might actually be away the week after, but Skeleton Crew, it's coming, and it's gonna attract kids, hopefully. So that's another thing. I think wonder if there aren't enough kid perspectives in Star Wars anymore. I wonder if like all of the discourse is about adults remembering when they were kids, adults having these memories of nostalgia and saying, "Oh, that's not how I remember it. It's got to be different, got to change, or it's changed too much, or well, it does need to change, but it's changed too much. It's not how I remember it." When really, way is closer to how you remember it. Just a memory changes, memory. That's how memory works, and so. This show, and Young Jade Adventures, but also I think this show is a live action show that's going to appeal to all audiences. making new memories. Kids making new memories. Of course, Rise of Skywalker, well, the sequel trilogy did that to some extent, but it also, also annoyed a bunch of people because, again, it's not like, or at least Last Jedi, they thought wasn't like what they remember, when it turns out it really was pretty close, pretty good, and important pushing against some of those things. But yeah, it's I'm curious. That makes me wonder where this show is going to fit then in just the long term. How we consider Star Wars. Probably not going to be all that significant in the grand scheme of things, but I wonder if there's going to be 20 years ago. There's going to be a kid who watched this. It's going to be turning 30. They were 10 when they watched this show, and oh yeah, this was the best thing ever, and this is why I love Star Wars. That is going to happen with some, and so I'll want to hear that story too. So yeah, any thoughts on basically this turned into kids watching Skeleton Crew, but any thoughts on that?
Lucky you get to see Skeleton Crew with theaters. I don't get to see Skeleton Crew with theaters. I gotta wait until Tuesday.
Again, Toronto, we never get these things.
Yeah. Okay. I'm excited. I hope it's good. I'm excited for Skeleton Crew. I need some Star Wars. I need some live action Star Wars.
Yeah. Also, I mean, the marketing, the lack of marketing is really made for some expectations. Well, not made for expectations, as in it's they've intentionally downplayed expectations. I know there's been more marketing recently talking about it, but yeah.
I really noticed some more marketing for Andor, but maybe that's because they think. But maybe that's because they think that's going to be their next big thing. Which I mean, I wouldn't blame anybody if you thought Andor was the next big one.
Yeah, I mean, it was when it was out. When season 1 was out, it was so.
And I have a feeling season 2 might be bigger than season 1. That's just my bet. Just saying. In these
times, also, it's going to tap into what
and also it's really good.
Yeah, also it's going to tap into what people loved about A New Hope. Just the story of, well, it's going to maybe it's a story of good guys versus bad guys and the cruelty of the Empire, but also it's going to challenge some things. So who knows? It might be the prestige TV. It might get the Last Jedi treatment. We'll see. I'm expecting to love it in that case, but yeah, there we go. Any last thoughts?
Nope, I'm just excited for Skeleton Crew. I'm waiting for it. I'm ready for it.
So we're just over a week away. There we go. All right. Next up, some news. Joke's so great I used it twice. So on Wednesday we talked about this on Tractor Beam because last Wednesday Marvel.com announced 5 years later Rise of Skywalker comic book adaptation. I'll show. Here's the Phil Noto cover right here. I believe this is version number 1. You got the Wayfinder and you got the Vader mask and all that stuff that we know from the film, and the Knights of Ren in behind there, and Armitage and Pride, whatever his first name is. There we go. Enric, that guy. Anyway, so this is from Marvel.com. Marvel Comics' historic tradition of Star Wars comic book adaptations continues this February with Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker adaptation, written by Jody Houser and drawn by artist Will Sliney. The previously announced 5-issue limited series brings 2019 Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker film to the page at last. In addition to retelling the Resistance's desperate last stand, the shocking return of Emperor Palpatine, and more, here's the kicker. The series will include all new scenes not in the final film. So there we go, 5 years later. First off, before we get into too much, what was your initial reaction to all this?
Wow, they're finally doing it. Yeah. That was my initial reaction. Like, dang, did kind of thought this was dead. Not quite sure why. I mean, you said that Jody Houser might have had some health issues and that might have delayed it. I just thought they were just so done with the sequels at this point. Like, okay, maybe they don't want to do it. Like, oh, maybe they're too embarrassed because of Rise of Skywalker in general. But I'm like, okay, yay, yay. Another Rise of Skywalker adaptation. The novel is great. This is probably maybe going to be better than the movie.
Well, yeah, maybe.
I mean,
Sorry, that was harsh. That was mean. But
I mean, it's like that's one of the reasons why I don't like the adapting to the other stuff. Because like I like the show better. I like the Mandalorian show when I like the Mandalorian comic.
Yeah.
I like the Ahsoka show when I like the Ahsoka comic. Ron, this one was fine.
Yeah.
Adapting of the novel, so you can see pictures. No, I was a little surprised, and then I did some deeper digging into it later. But that was my initial reaction of like, "Oh wow, this is actually happening."
Yeah.
I'm kind of shocked, but I guess maybe it's. I have a. We can just later. I have a kind of a pet theory of I think sequel stuff might be coming back into full throttle soon. We can get into that later, but maybe this is a sign.
Yeah. Well, no, I think maybe we can get to it now, just because I think where you're going with this, I think it was a whole 5 days ago. I think Chris went to this too on Wednesday. There's the Legacy of Vader comic and the Poe Dameron comic are also coming out. Charles Soule's Legacy of Vader, Ethan Sachs' Poe Dameron. Yeah, I think is this where you're going? This is getting us back into sequel mode because of Sharmino Obaid-Chinoy film, the Ray film, and maybe the Kinberg trilogy, just kind of testing the waters for just getting it. I don't know, out into the ether, getting it. People who go to comic book stores or shops will see it on the shelves. Oh yeah, the sequels.
I also that maybe because outside of Mangled and the Filoni projects and the Lando show, most of the rumored movies all seem to take place after the Rise of Skywalker. So maybe they're like, okay, books and comics, there's nothing going on here. You can do it. You can come in and start filling the gaps in now.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's later, so it can't really set up for anything. I mean, the Poe book will be before Force Awakens, and then Legacy of Vader is in between Last Jedi and Rise of Skywalker. So
this theory of mine will come to fruition. Well, I will know more for certain depending on what the main line does. Because as of now, I think the main line either go to the prequels, but we have a prequels ongoing with the Jedi Knights.
Yeah.
Or that does go to the sequel era with Rey, Finn, and Poe side of the story. It'd be interesting to do Kylo, but not do Rey, Finn, and Poe having adventures.
So again, that Legacy of Vader book by Charles Soule, and I think that's considered it's an ongoing. I forget how many.
That's an ongoing. It's an ongoing.
Yeah, and so that's a Kylo Ren book with Vader. I mean, getting the Vader presence in. The one thing we talked about, another thing we talked about on Wednesday though, was that the free comic book day has a Qui-Gon story. So that's by Mark Guggenheim, with Jedi Knights. It has a Kylo Ren story likely by Charles Soule. It has a Luke Skywalker story, likely by Alex Segura. And
Alex Segura wants to keep going. So
and so
I wouldn't mind that as well.
We're kind of the suspicion now is that the main line, the ongoing Star Wars will be after Jakku with Luke.
Okay.
But yeah, so well now I'm curious. What's your theory, or do we want to go into some of the more details first?
Oh no, that's just the theory. Is that because all the movies seem to be very post Rise of Skywalker in terms of like most of them, with the few exceptions that I brought up.
Yeah,
I just feel like means okay. I guess the sequel era is open now for more stuff, for paper to come in now and do its thing.
Yeah.
So because the path is clear. So that was pretty much my theory.
So as in because they're not doing things just before? Was that
not doing anything in between.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any 6 seasons of Rey adventures coming to Disney Plus. So that her side of that era is open now. So, but
I guess because my one question then is because they're just careful not to do anything that a film can and will contradict. And so,
I mean, I don't know how you can contradict. I mean, I guess you can, but like a lot of this stuff is a lot of these rumored films are going to be like 15 years after the fact. So
okay, that's good to know. I thought,
it's not like the post Rise of Skywalker Day 2. I mean, maybe one day they'll do that, but everything that it seems, the rumor seems to be like Next Generation. Rey is now 15 years. She's Daisy Ridley. Remember, Rey's only 18 in the sequels, and Daisy Ridley's in her 30s. She looks good, but you know, they want to age Rey up to be Daisy Ridley's age.
Sure.
So, so yeah, that's my reason.
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, it's now open. Again, there's probably multiple reasons there. We can dive in a little deeper here. Chris and I looked at this panel. This is the thing about comics. I'll just mention this briefly. That's the thing about comics is that you can reorder scenes. You can present visuals that the film just doesn't. And so here, this is connecting Rey's training with Leia's training in a way that it doesn't come across in the film as clearly to me. And so just because with Leia's training, it's just this blink and you miss it flashback almost. And we're more focused on what Rey and I guess Leia or Luke are doing. I can't quite remember. With Rey's training, it's clear. We see it. But here, Will Sliney, who, by the way, has worked a lot with Charles Soule, so he's done Star Wars before. He's definitely clearly connecting this mirror image page of Rey training on the left and Leia training on the right, and they're very clearly saying, Rey learns to be a Jedi from Leia more than anyone in that. So that was fascinating. You wanted to get into this guy. This is probably one of the reasons you're excited for this most. Somehow Palpatine returned. Well, here's how. What struck you in this image?
What struck me is I wish we could zoom in. Unfortunately, we can't. I don't know how. Is the bottom panel? Thank you. That's probably gonna help a little bit. It's the bottom panel right here. Because at first I thought, oh, is this just like showing an experiment just randomly, like a Snoke? And then someone pointed out they saw this image and it's like, well, okay, they're gonna add new scenes, and I don't know if they're just gonna adapt the novelization's new scenes or not. Because the novelization had some new stuff in it, like the Leia thing. And I wonder if this is a flashback to Palpatine first coming into his clone body. Because I looked at it deeper. This is, you can see I'm getting a little. This is me getting really
get into the links. Go for it.
I zoomed in on the head. I wish we could zoom in on the head.
Yeah, if you go like the bottom right there on StreamYards, I know Inside Baseball here, but yeah.
But if you look at the head, it's got a very Ian McDiarmid looking profile.
Yeah.
I matched the profile. It's got his nose, and I can kind of tell. And anyway, so I thought to myself, oh, are we gonna get like panel flashbacks of like Palpatine first coming into the clone, and this is him in the clone, and the sense of colonel like, oh no, the clone's already malfunctioning. Quick, get the evil juice. You know, they're just picking and prodding him like, live, Emperor, live. Get your spirit in there. And I wonder if that's like one of those newer scenes that Jodie Houser said she wrote herself. And that's actually something I thought about when we talk about the Leia stuff. Is okay. Well, in the novel, the first scene in the novel is Rey training on Dakar. Dakar. Yeah. No.
Yeah.
It's Dakar.
Agent Kloss.
Agent Kloss. That's right. Dakar's Force Awakens. Dang, the planets are all the same. On Agent Kloss, and Leia's then like, hey, I get you. I was there too. I trained. Leia's reflecting on her own training. So at first I thought, oh, maybe they're just telling the novel structure, but in comic book form, where it starts with Leia and then goes to Ben. I would not be shocked if we saw the Eye of Webbish Bog in here, because that's also in the novel. They put that the lead scene back in the novel.
Yeah.
But I do wonder if if there will be like some extra Exegol moments here with the flashback, and maybe even showing one of my favorite moments in the novel, Palpatine first going into his clone body after he got chucked down the shaft. So I don't know. I just thought that was really cool, just to kind of see these little tiny moments of like, here's the trials and horrors that Palpatine had to do to himself to stay alive. And it's like, it's creepy, but it's also really cool. So I don't know. It's one of those things where it's like, oh, maybe this is going to be one of those adaptations that have some extra that's a little bit more umph than the ones we've been getting with the streaming shows. So that excited me. Anything to see more ethical artistry is always a plus for me. So that's why. Very, very basic.
I mean, it's another symmetrical page. You know, you have Kylo on both sides, and then going through, and then with Palpatine. I mean, this might be that first time we see him. I mean, that seems likely, right? You know, the first scene of the movie when we see him comes down, but that bottom bit there, we actually see, you know, kind of the flashback there. It also reminded me of Vader in Revenge of the Sith, you know, which is all, you know, the speech bubble may well be the unnatural quote, right? And then of course, you know, just Vader, remember Vader, you know, at the end of remember, of course, at the end of Revenge of the Sith, Vader is lying on the table, getting the mask on. This shot here, this image here, reminded me of that. That was Giuseppe Capricorn, not Will Sliney, but yeah, really entering the Invader 2017 comic, but obviously in the film Revenge of the Sith. But yeah, very much connecting to being reborn into the dark side. Yeah, so I agree. This comic is gonna have a lot more. Chris is making me buy it, making me read it. So we'll talk about it on the Tractor Beam. I'll just say one last thing. I really struggle with the adaptations, with the streaming service adaptations. We don't talk about them on the Tractor Beam because they just don't add anything. They're not allowed to add anything, and that's the fascinating thing here. Is Jody was allowed, and Ray Carson, and this is the question we'll get to in a minute after your point here. Ray Carson was allowed to pick and choose and add things in, not necessarily pick and choose, but add things in and structure her book in a way that makes sense as a book. Jody, 5 issues. Hopefully, yeah, it makes sense as a comic book. That's going to probably feel a little fast, but you know, for hopefully it has enough new and interesting things to make it worthwhile. And that's always the question, because frankly, just to be brutally harsh, the comic adaptations of the Disney Plus streaming series do not have any. Like I read the Ahsoka chapter 5, my favorite episode in live action Star Wars television, and it was like, okay, I'm just reading this through. I know what happens. I know what's going on. I'd rather watch the episode. This one, hopefully, hopefully it makes me want to watch the film and enjoy it, but really
read the novel instead.
Yeah, or read the novel, but yeah, hopefully this grips me well into just the depths that this story does have, that even Adam Christopher and others have gone into. So yeah, and Greg Pak has gone into as well in a way. So anyway, sorry, go ahead.
I am once again curious how much of this is looking at the novel and not the movie itself. Because that's the funny thing about the Adam Christopher Shadow of the Sith. That's very much looking at the novel. That is a companion piece to that novel. Because like stuff like Land of the Daughters in there, which was cut from the film. The Rey's parents stuff, that's all from the novel.
True.
Because remember, the movie did not mention Palpatine's son as a clone. That's the novel. So that all comes from the novel. So there's that. What else? What else about the? I mean, again, the Leia stuff. That's again from the novel. Shoot, I am curious to see though. What is added to this comic and what sort of stays the same? Again, to use the novel, first act of the book is. I mean, it's a bit smoother. It's a lot smoother than the opening of the movie, and it's a lot more fleshed out. Middle part's more or less the same, and the ending pretty much the same, just with a few extra lines of dialogue. So I'm kind of curious, like, what seems to be just not that the movie is changing, not that the story itself is going to change. Obviously, you know, like Rey's still Palpatine back, all the stuff that you fundamentally, if you fundamentally don't like the movie, then it's not going to change anything. Like Rose doesn't go on the journey; they can't change that. But you know, it's like just from a structural standpoint, what did they change to smoothen out those rougher edges, and what stayed the same. Like there are extra lines of dialogue which I hope are brought in. Like there's a line in the movie that was cut where Palpatine goes to Kylo and he says, he says he is more than a clone, less than a man, which is a good line. So I'm curious if that line comes in. That's very much that bottom panel right there. He's more than the clone, but he's definitely less than a man right now. So I'm just curious, like, see, like, what she thought needed restructuring and what was like, this can stay exactly the same.
I mean, what might be moved around. Like, again, that's an interesting thing. This is 2 different points in the film on one page. This is the mirror page there. So
that's a big deal if that's coming into the already.
Yeah, and so again, but it's not like none of the things that have changed, but what it adds, what it kind of
it reinforces,
even. What reinforces, reframes.
Right.
I think it will help us appreciate the story for more. Yeah, Jodie Houser. I mean, her the Thrawn 2017 novel, her adaptation of that was spot on. Her Age of Republic, spot on. I think she did a Captain Marvel book. That was pretty. I think no, that was Kelly Thompson. Never mind. But yeah, Age of Republic is. I mean, those are one shots, but those are fantastic books too. So
I would say the Rise of Skywalker novelization, and if the comic book anything, even if it's half as good as the novelization, I think really can show just obviously, there are certain things that I don't think anyone's gonna like about Rise of Skywalker, regardless. Like I know Dominic not gonna like Rey being a Palpatine ever. It's no about restructuring the film. Whatever will change that.
No, yeah.
But you have the Leia stuff, which is in the film, but if you just place it somewhere else, that can really hammer home that idea even more than where it might have been in the film. So
just one page right here. What it reframes, what it does. So I should say this is. I forgot to mention, Phil Noto with the cover, with the distinctive cover. It's different enough. It's different enough to be distinctive, but clearly also like Phil Noto. Oh, sorry. I had my coffee. I have my decaf. So this comes out in February. Maybe time for me to read the novel. I'll probably hold off just because I want to have the story fresh. But read the novel and maybe watch the movie.
We can talk about it.
Yeah, that's true too. All right. Any last thoughts on this one?
No, this is one of the few adaptations I'm excited for, and I'm glad it's actually happening because I feel bad for completionists who have the saga and
5 years later.
I know, it's like we have a Last Jedi, and then
so funny. All right. We can move right along. Speaking of Jedi, speaking of the Force, speaking of other folks, the Jedi, the Force, and Normies. Actually, no. Sorry, one last thing. You had this thing about Atha Prime.
Oh yeah, right.
Is this connected to the Rise of Skywalker thing?
No, but this is connected to the rest of the comics because he's coming in. So this guy, Atha Prime, is going to be appearing in the Jedi Knight book. Right?
Okay. Jedi Knights by Mark Guggenheim. Yeah.
And he also
focusing on Qui-Gon.
Yes, and he's also appearing in a. He also appeared in the variant cover of the Rise of Kylo Ren. Not the Rise of Kylo Ren, of the Kylo Ren Legacy Vader book.
Yeah.
Whether or not that's just because of a variant or he's going to be the book, we don't know yet. But Atha Prime has history, folks. He is an old character. So old, in fact, he wasn't even Legends. He was before Legends. So I'm going to read
Legends of Legends.
Yeah, I'm gonna read. So he was a Kenner Toys idea for a post-Return of the Jedi villain back in the 80s.
Wow.
And I'm going to read this little excerpt of him just because I think it's cool. A powerful force, long kept in exile in the remote fringe of the galaxy, has been released by the death of the Emperor. It moves now like a plague, securing control over the shattered remnants of the Empire and re-enslaving the newly freed world. Atha Prime, Genetics Master, ruler of the Dark Worlds, and architect of the Clone Wars, is free again. The advanced army of combat clones has already decimated rebel outposts along the galactic frontier. His goal is to crush forever the Rebel Alliance and control the galaxy. Oh yeah, that's how old this guy is, and I'm fascinated to see how they're going to incorporate him now with all the new lore and stuff. So
Yeah.
it's really cool. I just wanted to bring that up because I just thought, oh wow, this is a deep pull. So yeah, that's kind of it.
And it's interesting. It's in both the prequel comic. There's a mention of it in the prequel comic and in the sequel comic, which is that's saying something. I mean, he's was going to be in the original trilogy era because that was the only era, but yeah, but I mean, connected to the Clone Wars, so maybe that's where he pops up doing what he's doing during the Clone Wars, and maybe something connected to Camino to fit it into canon. Yeah, Advanced Army Combat Clones. Yeah, that's fascinating. I mean, it's good look. I'm just looking at Wikipedia here. Um, this
It's fun seeing
Ramon
what Star
Rosanas.
tried to do after Return of the Jedi, and like Canon would keep coming up with new ideas.
Like just looking at this variant cover, you have kind of the Palpatine Sith wizard folks, viziers in the background. His helmet kind of looks like Markian's a little bit with the flaring out.
A little bit.
But also it's like the Crimson Corsair. Look this up. So Atha Prime Jedi Knights variant. Is that where he shows up?
Legacy Vader.
Yeah, but he also shows up in Jedi Knights. He said
he appears in the book,
okay.
But the variant
he
cover
actually is in the story.
Yeah, he's in the story, but the cover is for Legacy Vader.
Well, that variant cover, it says sneak peek variant, so
True.
maybe that's fascinating. I mean, that's another question: is how are they going to connect these books when they're set 50 years apart?
I always like stuff like that because, he's the guy from the past, and now he's coming into the future.
I mean, I really love. Yeah, I was going to say that Mon Cala. I count that as a crossover, frankly. It's in the ongoing Star Wars comic. He's on life support there. This is Lee Char, right?
Yes.
He's King Lee Char. He's elderly. He's on life support. He's captured by the Empire. 20 years earlier, in the Vader comic, is a whole thing where Vader goes and when he gets captured, and I believe, if I remember, he's kind of shady, but yeah, that kind of synergy across, and they came out around the same time too, those books. So yeah, they definitely, them, Charles and Mark and them, and yeah, they know how to plan things out. They know how to think about things. Alex Segura clearly also knowing how to plan things out. So that's exciting. That's interesting. Another fascinating deep cut. Again, Atha Prime, if he's showing up in Jedi Knights, if his shtick is genetics, then that would be fascinating to see.
But Legacy Vader, his thing is genetics. An emperor who needs help with his genetics, right?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, that in cloning, dark arts cloning, that might be maybe just monkey fan brain here. Maybe that he might be the connection between Exegol and Camino.
Maybe that'd be cool.
That to make it fit in canon, it makes sense that he'd be connected to Camino somehow, or maybe another plan B for Palpatine in his whole plan, because he's been stewing on this already. By this point, we know that.
Yeah.
Before the Phantom Menace, this is before the Phantom Menace. Obviously, because Qui-Gon's in it, but we know Sheev has been trying to figure out this clone thing already. Maybe, I don't know, he's a plan B or Beta, or he is connected to Camino in some way. And then Sheev comes back to him and says, "Hey, can you help me out? Revive me again somehow." Of course, that's well, no, it's set in the year before Rise of Skywalker. So yeah, fascinating stuff. Comics. If there's ever time to get into comics, it's just all kickstarted again. So the waters, we replaced the old bath water, and we the old jacuzzi water, and we've recycled it in, got new jacuzzi water, and here's the metaphor that's training here. The Battle of Jakku, it's only about to be 6 issues in. just start there, and you keep collecting comics and just get on board, because it's going to pick up again. I mean, the whole last 9 years was fantastic, spectacular for the most part, but yeah,
I
this
hope we get a
new
sequel novel, Aaron
yeah,
novel.
yeah, why not? But also this new era shaping up to be a nice change of pace and fascinating. That there's just being 3 different eras, and they're going to keep diving into things like this. So, all right, now we can move right along to our main topic here: the Force, Jedi, the Force, and Normies. I'll let you take it away.
All right, normies. Normies. Ah,
Maybe define what normies are.
regular folk who don't have force powers.
Yeah.
We use a certain word, but we don't want to use it.
Yeah.
So I thought about this. Thanks to our friend the Daughter of the Ferric podcast. I think we can be a lot of ideas this week. Topics.
Yeah.
When it comes to we got the Force. We know it's got to be somewhat of a thing because the Jedi can, we see the fantastical and the mystical and whatnot. But what does a normal person think about the Force? Right? What does is the Force like a god to some people? Sure. Is the Force a bunch of hoax of hoodwish and hogwash and
Hokey
gobbledygook?
religions and yeah.
No match for a good blaster. Exactly.
Yeah.
Is the Force just something that weird wizard people say they use when they use their telekinesis? Perhaps. Is Force atheism a thing? Probably. And I just think this is an interesting idea of okay, even if you saw a Jedi, you could still probably be a Force atheist because, just because you see someone doing telekinesis doesn't necessarily prove that the Force is real. It can't prove,
Yeah.
And I just sort of, and I just kind of wonder if, what does, on a day-to-day basis, what does the average person in the galaxy think of the Force? If they think of the Force at all. And I don't know, I'll toss this to you, Matthew, because this is your study of theology. And here's a good question.
Bring that up already.
Here, let's start here. Is the Force meant to be, in the terms of Star Wars, God? Is the Force God?
It's a great question. I think it's hard to say. I mean, depends on how different characters relate to it. I mean, the closest we get maybe is Mortis and the Yoda arc, where there is a type of way of communing and connecting. But well, here's the thing of High Republic and the Nameless, and the thing that Jedi fear. The thing that Jedi fear, I think, most is is the Force being their weakness and not their strength. The reason that's so devastating and so scary isn't just because they because what can happen to them when they encounter a Nameless, right? That's scary enough. But for a Jedi, the Force is their source of being. There's this concept in 20th century theology called the ground of being in philosophy. The ground of being, and that in a way, everyone, you might not call it a god, but everyone has some ingrained subconscious or conscious, hopefully, basic order to the universe. And one of those order could be randomness and disorder. That counts. But I think just even behind that, there might be some other kind of order. Why is it basic? Why is it random and chaotic? So with the Jedi, I mean, with the Jedi especially, and I think, this is the question I think maybe getting into the Church of the Force and the Guardians of the Wills and that's something with in the High Republic with Pathfinders and others who work with the Jedi. At least a force for good in the galaxy, and a source of common, a source of gathering in common. I mean, I think when Lena So says we are all the Republic, there's a question. Is she upholding the Republic as the ground of being, or is she upholding the Force that enables the Republic to be united as the ground of being? Maybe, with Elzar being there, advising her. We don't know, but yeah, it depends. I mean, that's another big debate, because here's the problem with my answer. Is
based in fiction. It depends
well,
on
it's fiction, but George was consciously taking from Western and Eastern influences, and of course Christianity is also an Eastern religion, but his close at hand was this Methodism, Protestantism that he grew up around, at least, but also then Buddhism, and this kind of the at one with the universe, which doesn't work in the same kind of God in the same categorical way. And so that's the question. Insofar as the Force is a will that orders and binds the galaxy together, you could say that it has an intelligence, has a reason. You could say that, but also becomes the source and ground of being. I mean, the funny thing about the dark side is that whole point is that the self becomes the ground of being, and over and against other claims. And that's, so that also answering the question by negation, if you will. But yeah, I guess it depends. It's a good question. I mean, it depends on where you go with it. I mean, there's definitely, I mean, how do you define God again? As ground of being, as, I mean, the source of life. That's in The Last Jedi, what we see with Rey. Being able to see the source, the order to the pattern of life and death and decay and new life. Yeah, I mean, George is definitely, and of course that's Ryan interpreting George, but and Dave Filoni and them, but there's definitely tapping into something beyond simply the material, as specifically a source of purpose and destiny and hope, and maybe sometimes fatalistic, but not necessarily. And that's another interesting Western thing, is there's destiny, but it's not. There's a difference between destiny and fate. Fate, and maybe insofar, maybe this is, I mean, I don't know if we're getting down the rabbit hole here. Fate is, I mean, kind of what Palpatine means by destiny, is that you can't resist it. It's going to happen whether you want it or not. Whereas destiny is, this is who you're meant to be. You can participate in it or not. And that is the more...
Weirdly, I would feel Palpatine doing the reverse. I feel like Palpatine uses destiny in a more sinister manner, and fate is a little bit more used by the good guys. That's just my
interesting.
Like,
well, he's using the word destiny, but he means that what he's saying is it's your inevitable conclusion to reach out and grab power for yourself. Right. Whereas Luke says, no, it's not. I'm a Jedi like my father before me.
Right. So I guess the question is, like, how do regular people interpret something like, I guess, will of the Force?
Yeah.
To a normal person, I think, sort of like this is where the God thing comes in. Like people say, oh, God has a plan for everybody, right? I think, normal people like, will of the Force, it's will of the Force that this happened. I think you can be fatalistic about it. Like, it's like, oh, I got hit by a car today because of the will of Force. I can't do anything about it. It's sort of like, every, sort of like, I didn't wait for the Force to make my life better, and then they get, they don't do anything, and then you can have the complete opposite, where it's like people are like, oh, the Force, it's the Han Solo thing, like, hey, there's no all powerful Force that controls my destiny.
Mm-hmm.
And I think here's something we can get into. Like, no one can truly prove that. It's like, if we lived in universe, obviously, I think the Force does exist because the writers say so. But let's pretend like the Star Wars is not fiction for a half a second. Let's go really nerdy. Let's pretend we live in Star Wars. God help.
We're talking about this is an in-universe conversation, so
right? Can I guess here's the question: Can, if this is an in-universe thing, Can Han Solo ever prove that there is a force that controls his destiny? Even if he's best friends with Luke Skywalker, he can believe that himself.
Yeah.
But I don't think he could ever empirically prove it. It's like can't technically empirically prove God.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts on that? Like, could
yeah.
even if he could, like, I'll just throw one more example in.
Yeah, go for it.
And then I'll ask, even if Han Solo faced Emperor Palpatine's going full on zap on him, and Han Solo survives, can he ever truly prove that they're the all-powerful force that controls his destiny?
Right, it's a non-falsifiable claim, right? Is what you're getting at here, and and that also again is the distinction between faith and proof, right? Again, bring this up again. Faith. Here's the tricky thing: it's not necessarily blind, but it says, okay, I've experienced. Well, first of all, that's the thing we see with Han in Force Awakens. Right. He's come to believe not because someone walked through a set of proofs, but because he's experienced Luke. He's experienced the downfall of this empire that seemed inevitable, and I know we talked about it that it wasn't, but that seemed eternal. And he saw that. And he saw, he's seen Luke's character, and how Luke was able, is able to tap into the Force and for good, even through suffering and loss. And that's the thing is, suffering and loss can be this great proof against the existence of God, but it doesn't have to be, right? It's also, what you conceive of as the presence of the Force and the will of the Force guiding people through to make the most of the bad situations we inevitably do find ourselves in. And again, it's and so that's what faith is. It's saying, okay, we have this experience, we have this tradition, we have these Jedi books, and Yoda is passing this on to Luke and whatnot, and it's thing, it's funny, we have this experience and we say, okay, this tradition and these books and the scriptures or whatnot help us understand and make sense of this experience. Experiences of suffering, experiences of joy, experiences of family and connection and meaning. That's the thing, is that there are other ways of making sense of that experience. It's just, what tradition have you been guided into? Maybe that's kind of the more secular view of it, is you look down and look at the diversity of things and pluralism, the plurality of things. And so, maybe you could say that. What's fascinating, in the real world, we have interreligious dialogue. Right. And that's about two things. It's about three things. It's about, saying, okay, here are the differences that help clarify our different convictions. Here are the commonalities that help clarify our common convictions. And here are definitely the ways we can cooperate. A lot of interfaith dialogue has focused on climate change. It's focused on war and peace over the last number of years, and working together to build a more peaceable world. And so, would I say that is, that effort is a move of God? Yeah, I would. You might not. Who's to say who's right or wrong? It's just, there's also, again, the way of us relating to each other. So, again, to bring it back to your question, it depends on how Han makes sense of that moment, right?
Well,
but also how he makes sense of the Luke throwing his lightsaber away, right? Just one movie before, he sees Vader, he pulls out his blaster, which makes sense, right? You want to take him out, but Luke doesn't do that, and see what happens, right?
Yeah, it's interesting. Another this is Star Wars adjacent. Indiana Jones.
Speaking of Han,
speaking of Han,
Harrison Ford,
is kind of weirdly the opposite of Han Solo, but also not, because I don't know if Indiana Jones like outright an atheist or something, but he doesn't. I don't know if he actually is a believer in like a god. They actually never say, but what's funny is Indiana Jones, like his whole thing is like he never believes. He doesn't think there's a god. I don't think he ever he doesn't think there's like a grand spiritual thing, and yet he said like I don't believe in like God or stuff like that, but like I saw some weird stuff.
Yeah,
the Holy Grail and the Ark of the Covenant.
Yeah,
and Shiva. Apparently, all the religions exist in Indiana Jones world.
Right.
But I think that's kind of funny is that he lived in a world where the religions are, I guess, I don't want to say they're real, but there's magical stuff that happens to him.
Yeah,
because it's part of the fun of the fiction.
And Marvel's kind of getting there too, to some extent.
But Indy's like, no, I still don't actually believe in like these religions are a thing. But I just kind of assume that I just saw some weird stuff. I don't understand it. I still don't think there's a religion, but I saw some weird stuff.
He's talking about Indy, yeah.
It's one of for Indy, so it's kind of like the opposite of Han, where Han does eventually like, oh no, the Force is real. It does play in our face a little bit, where Indy's still kind of like, look, I know there's some weird stuff going on, but I still don't believe it's like an all-powerful God that controls my destiny. So I think that's kind of interesting that he still doesn't believe, and even though he had all the weird experiences.
Yeah. I mean, I mentioned this before on this podcast, but I'm really curious. I really want someone to dive into the implications of a republic without the Jedi, because that's the thing is, and well, I mean, the closest thing we've gotten in a way is on Jedi in Phase 2 of High Republic. There's other groups and other sects, and some of them are able to cooperate because some of them are. There's still the light side and the dark side. Maybe that's just it. There's these consistencies through these things that at least the story gives us. But yeah, I mean, that's the thing is, by and large in the Republic, until the fall of the Jedi, there was one dominant tradition through which all people can make sense of these experiences and make sense of even the meaning of their families and their jobs and careers. That's why they say they're able to trust the Jedi so well. Interestingly, with some exceptions, when the Jedi really screw up or something happens, just listening to the beginning of that audiobook that just came out. The audio, I forget what it's called. Yeah, the one it's on Irem, and because there's this town near Starlight Beacon, where Starlight Beacon crashed, they're skeptical of the Jedi. They thought they really caused a lot of damage. Artez sisters, right? That's also a sign of the decline. Other than that, though, they're people by and large have the Jedi to turn to, and so that it's fascinating. I mean, what I'm wondering, maybe if we get there in the Rey films, if we get there in the Kimber trilogy, to say there are other groups out there, and is it an ecumenical dialogue? Is it different light side groups who are able to say we have this common belief, or is there more that distinguishes them, differentiates them?
Well, I mean, how much for normal people though is it because of religious thing, or it's like if I was living in the Republic, to me it's not about the religion. It's like, hey, the Republic's got basically hired superheroes that do stuff for me.
Yeah.
Like how much of it is like, hey, look, it's like the government Justice League. They are superheroes that do cool stuff and help out. Like religion, that's all great. But you help me lift the rocks, buddy.
I mean, I think that gets at kind of the more utilitarian view of it that you have in the notes here. With Thrawn, for example, is it, you raise that example.
We're even about normal people who aren't Thrawn and probably aren't evil. We'll get to
that too. That too. But I guess what I mean is, the thing I was always looking for in High Republic, which I think we get implicitly is, for the normal people, they can still, they're still going to likely believe that the Force moves in ways that the Jedi kind of say they do under Jedi wisdom. And that's the thing, is that the Force isn't about lifting rocks. And just because you have a high M count, and that's another thing we can get into. Because you have a high M count, or just because you have a low M count, doesn't mean that the Force isn't present and it doesn't guide your life, right? Now, Sabine at the end of
Unless you
Ahsoka
don't
season
believe that,
1,
of course.
unless you don't believe, well, yeah, but sure, but in that, there will be people, hopefully, I'd imagine, like the Church of the Force, but just folks who will collaborate with the Jedi, like Lena. So, we don't see this in the story, but I kind of can imagine them still believing in, again, that's we are all the Republic, believing that the Force has a say in making that happen. You know, um, in ways that maybe are more subtle. And that, again, that's the thing. Is it about lifting rocks? It can be, just because you have a low M count doesn't mean, again, can't find meaning in this Jedi tradition about how the Force moves through the galaxy and binds the galaxy together. And the way, one of the things we have in our real world, Martin Luther King Jr., his line, the arc of the moral universe is long and it bends towards justice. Now, what that looks like, I don't know, because there's a lot of injustice that comes back and forth. But if that's fundamentally what you believe about if you believe that there's a fundamental order to the universe that is just, and then that's the thing. Then you can say, yeah, this is how we ought to be, as a society, how we have to relate to each other, and then injustice goes against the moral fabric of the universe, the moral order, not just the moral order, but the order. It is a disorder, and it is a chaotic evil, right? Chaotic good, to use those kinds of alignment things, is defined as good because it bends towards justice and reciprocity, disrupting structures of lawful evil, for example. So that's why this kind of D&D classifications work. But yeah, again, I think it's possible. What I'm getting at is it's possible for normies to relate to the Force, just to believe that it will, in more subtle ways, in quieter ways.
Yeah.
And then you get the example of Sabine at the end of Ahsoka, where she does clearly have a low M count, but because she's so focused and because she's so, you're relying on, she's tapped into Jedi tradition too. Maybe that's just it. It's not, again, it's not lifting rocks. It's a wisdom. In that moment, she needed to be on that ship, or she needed to push Ezra on that ship, right? Ezra needed to be there. The Force. Here's the thing: if the Force is an intelligence, the Force knows Ezra needs to be on that ship, and so Sabine can tap into the Force's ability to push him there. That's, it doesn't, and so that's, it's almost an exception that proves the rule in that case.
This makes me wonder. I wonder if there are quote unquote Force users who have powers, but they neither believe in the Force nor think of it as a religion. Because I think that's actually, and I think this might be a little bit not what the topic's about, but we're here. Where basically, like,
What could be one of the things we're talking about?
I'll use an evil example.
Yeah.
We all know Emperor Palpatine. He loves his powers. He loves having powers. We all know this. But in his own twisted way, he believes in the dark side. He believes that there is this dark side that he's controlling, that is part of the Force. He's not, and even Darth Vader. Actually, Vader's a better example. Vader's because when you actually think about it, someone actually pointed this out on Tumblr. Vader is actually, I think, a very religious guy. Like when he's choking the officer in New Hope, he's like, don't.
I find your lack of faith disturbing.
Yeah, like don't destroy a planet. It's insignificant. That's the power of the Force. He's in the dark side, but he's like, no, the Force is real, dude, and I believe in it, and you do not want to underestimate it. But so they still have this belief in this faith that they think of this Force.
Yeah.
But what if there's someone who uses, who can lift the rocks and Force choke and do the things? But it's like, oh, I just have these really cool powers. I don't know what this is about. Like people say it's the Force, whatever. Like I can just do these cool things. And it's like I don't know. I don't know where I'm going with this, but like I'd be curious, like a story like that. If like they're using the Force, but they don't believe it's the Force. They just think, oh, I just have telekinesis.
I mean,
there's
no religious,
There's no religious weight behind it. Just I have powers.
Well, that kind of gets into what I mean by tapping into a tradition to make sense of an experience, right?
Right.
They don't have that tradition in order to define that experience. Vader has 19 years, 10 years, whatever, of being a Jedi behind him. He has, whatever, how many years of being a pod racer before that. So, it's a great point. He's still tapping in to Jedi tradition. He's just taking it to the very dark place. I mean, that's even the way Hayden talks about performing Vader is start with Anakin and just go darker in his rage. That's the difference with the dark side is it's unbridled rage, or with Palpatine, unbridled order, unbridlable order. It's
and chaos. I also think chaos.
Yeah, you can also be chaotic too, but yeah. So darkness. Your kind of desert island example. Yeah, that people. I mean, maybe Anakin's kind of like that in that he, as a kid, he's able to pod race, right? When he shouldn't be able to do that. He shouldn't be able to survive going those speeds, having those reflexes. And it's not really until Qui-Gon shows up. I mean, they know about the Jedi in that case, but they don't really know about the Force. I mean, he's just super fast and able to anticipate what's happening. It's only until Qui-Gon shows up that says, okay, this could be if I'm able to train him to use this wisely, he can really tap into the wisdom of the Force and not just the the magic of it, and become. And that's why he could become the most powerful Jedi. That was why he could become the chosen one. Right. Yeah.
This is, I think, what I'm describing it as I think about. This is how someone like a Thrawn or a Moff Gideon probably views the Force, even if they call it the Force. I think, like, even if Moff Gideon calls it the Force, because obviously, it's like, I gotta call it something. I can't call it the power. Oh, that'd be cool. The power.
I mean, I think there are. I mean, that's the thing. There are other
names.
Other names. The wind.
Threads. The thread. But to Moff Gideon, it's like, oh, I'm gonna be like a Jedi. These Jedi have these midichlorians in their blood,
right?
That can connect into the Force. All I gotta do is just get myself some midichlorian juice, injection, and then I can start feeling. I can start moving things with my mind.
Yeah.
That's probably as there is no traditions. There is no way just keep injecting that midichlorians in my blood until I can start moving teacups. And that's how very much Thrawn probably views the Force as well. Compared again to, if we're just talking about villains for a second, again, compared to the Emperor, who, yes, obviously he's willing to do some dark, twisted science, but even he is like, I have this dark side faith that I truly believe in, and it's going to consume us all, and it's going to be evil and great. But I still kind of have like this deep fanaticism. This is how I view these powers. As the dark side, because that's how my master taught me. That's how his master taught me. It's like,
again, you're literally describing tradition right there.
Yeah,
that's literally what tradition is.
I mean, the Sith are a tradition.
Very much so,
they are they're evil, but they're an evil tradition that's gone back 5,000 years. That was spun off from the Jedi. So they have that where someone like Gideon's like, I'll just inject some science and I can start moving things with my mind. That's how I And I'll call it the Force because that's the best name we have for it.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. He's consciously going against the tradition and outside of the tradition. He's using these words without knowing what he means. I mean, Vader would probably be. I don't know what he'd be. He'd probably be
You think
dismissive of him.
Abomination probably quite.
Yeah, maybe I mean, in the Kieran Gillen comic, there's something kind of similar. Palpatine tries something similar.
Vader's very conservative, and I use that in the traditional sense.
He's traditionalist in that way, right? I mean, that's I'm just thinking about this now. Palpatine is a Sith Lord. Vader is a fallen Jedi.
Oh yeah.
And that the two are just so different. I mean, again, Vader and Palpatine, he really has taken on this I am my own ground of being. Whereas with Vader, yeah, the Force still is the ground of being. It's just
Count Dooku's got a bit of that too. Also, I would say
the
Fallen Jedi thing. Like Dooku and Vader are still they got a lot of Jedi baggage, even though they're Sith Lords.
I mean, Dooku thinks he's making the galaxy great again.
Right.
He's doing the right thing. Especially after that Tales of the Jedi episode, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which kind of goes against Dooku Jedi Lost, but Dooku Jedi Lost is a bit more of the Sith Lord. I'm just going to so I can shore up my own power. Vader isn't in it. That's the first thing. Vader isn't in it for his own power. Vader's in it to save Padme. Vader's in it to rid of the corruption of the Jedi.
I mean, I think Vader's in it for his own power a little bit. I just think he had more excuses. He tries to make excuses for himself and tries to logic himself. I think Vader's. I mean, I don't want to. I think
he schemes. Sure, yeah, he's scheming. Sure, he's trying. I mean, I'm trying to. There never really is a. I don't know. There's never really a moment in the. I'm thinking in the comics specifically in canon comics.
I don't know. I think when he finds out when Luke's alive, it's like, oh, now I can have it all again.
Yeah, I think
there's a selfishness to it. Even
I think it's half and half. Whereas with Palpatine, it's purely. You know what I'm getting at? That's what I'm getting at. Is yeah. I mean, we've gone on this wild tangent, but it's usually how people relate to the dark side. I mean, one topic we talk about how Imperials relate to the dark side.
Oh yeah.
Because that's the thing I've said before is the Empire, except for Palpatine, except for Vader, what we see with who it's not Tag, it's
Tarkin.
No, the one Vader, they're who believes in the power of this battle station.
Oh. No, that's Tarkin. Tarkin believes in the power of the battle station.
No, but
Mahdi? Mahdi.
Yeah, Mahdi. Yeah, Mahdi. I know prequel trivia. I should. Anyway.
That's original trilogy trivia. So.
I know. I should know this too. Mahdi. Mahdi's a great example of someone who believes that the Empire is the source of being and identity. That's another thing. Identity, right? And not to say that. Well, that's the thing. It's another question. The thing with the Empire is it's a source of identity and it's incredibly homogenizing and tries to create this monolith, which, to bring it back to the Outlaws thing, is another reason why it fails, because people aren't monolithic. People are different. The Jedi of the late Republic started to turn towards this kind of monolith idea to the point where you have this military structure in the Clone Wars. I mean, that's interesting. To what extent do they uphold the Jedi over against the Force as their source of being and hope and identity? Whereas in the High Republic, the Jedi are. That's another thing. And I think it's what I was mentioning. I think last week or a few weeks ago, one time. There was a conscious effort. I think I mentioned this last week. It's a conscious effort to show that the High Republic is so diverse. The Jedi in the High Republic are so diverse and representative, both for us to have for everyone to have insert point of view character and see themselves, but also again as a way of saying, their faith in the Force is so relaxed in a good way, in a calm way, that they can admit difference and see commonality in it, even in different ways. That's the amazing thing. The Jedi, the High Republic, have different ways of relating to the Force, and they still acknowledge it's the Force. With Avar with the song, and Brewery with the Force, right?
It's interesting. Yeah, I think it's interesting that I think the Republic is so diverse. That's like, if you're a soldier in war and you're like for the Republic or for the light side, it's like, hey, we're on the same team, still want the good regardless. So hey, let's work together. While as in the Empire, I think kind of the great irony, and I do think Palpatine would have slowly eroded this over time. I think this is what the whole Sith Eternal thing's all about. Is he's a Sith Lord, but yet he creates a very, I guess, if you could argue, a very secular empire. Like, no one in the Empire really fights for the dark side.
That's what I'm getting at, yeah.
There are dark side fanatics in the Empire who believe in that stuff, and obviously Palpatine has surrounded himself with, like the most inner circle. Like, they do believe in the dark side. That's the whole Sith Eternal exegol stuff that Palpatine's kind of preparing in the background for. It's like, when the time's right, I'm going to purge all these people. I'm going to really start to transform the Galactic Empire into a Sith Empire proper.
The final order.
The final order. But for now, Tarkin, Tag, Thrawn, Mahdi, Yularen, it's like they don't. If they even if they've experienced it, they don't probably believe personally in all this Force.
Right.
It's like, it's the Empire, it's the technological terror of the Death Star. It's just good old fashioned law and order. That's what we believe in. Even though the Emperor himself is like, has a darker, more sinister. Even Gallius Rax, who's like way more fanatical and way more, it was always played more the fanatical one in Aftermath books. Even he's like, the Emperor's always talking about this crazy dark side stuff. It's like, yeah, I know he's a great politician. He can do some weird magic tricks, but it's like, there's no dark side. There's no malevolent force that's gonna consume us all. It's like, that's where the Emperor gets weird to me. Like, I know it's true. It's like he's like,
I don't remember that. I believe you.
Oh no, like, it was a great moment. Like, he respects the Emperor for like being a great politician. Like, he is like 20 steps ahead of everybody, which he is. Palpatine normally is. But at the same time, it's like he's always talking about like these weird, archaic things. It's like, we don't need that in the new First Order. Even the First Order, Hux might listen to Snoke because he knows what power is, but Hux doesn't believe in like the dark side, and he just thinks Kylo Ren and Hux is the weird gothic weirdo who uses powers. Like, I can't wait to get rid of him, and then we can have good old fashioned military discipline again. And Thrawn does his Thronness. Even though he's using Night Sister magic, it's like, look, I just need your magic because it's all part of my plan. I don't really care that much about Night Sister. I think Night Sister culture is kind of cool, but like, I'm an observer. I don't really believe it. Cultural appropriation.
I mean, there's an interesting parallel, and there's a consistency with the Ascendancy novels finally, and I think it's also in the is it in Greater Good, or is it in not in Alliance? Yeah, maybe it's in Alliances too. I mean, Thrawn, at least in those novels, his main interaction with the Force is, okay, here's this thing that lets us travel through the unknown region, through wild space, or whatever it's called. What do they call it?
Unknown regions.
Yeah, well, the Chiss have a specific name for
it. The Skywalkers?
Well, yeah, so the Skywalker, like the space, the wild space, whatever. But yeah, the Skywalkers are just this thing that lets us travel through, and yeah, they're kids, so they can't really contribute much other than being Skywalkers, which is kind of a silly name, but silly coincidence. Yeah, and so that carries forward to how the Night Sisters, this utilitarian thing, even well, that's the funny thing with the Bendu, for example. He can't possibly anticipate or expect a force, a power greater than his tactical mind to show up in the middle of this battle, and it does because there are things in the Star Wars universe that are greater than Thrawn's tactical mind, believe it or not.
I know.
And so he's stunned.
Open fire.
He's not possible, not able to respond. Similar at the end of Rebels, where the Purrgil are clearly deeply connected to the Force. Of course, we know hyperspace itself, and that's how the Skywalkers work, is because we know hyperspace. That hasn't gone to it. Hopefully, I mean, a story doesn't need to necessarily go into it too much.
Right.
But the hyperspace is connected to the Force, probably world between worlds and all that. Thrawn thinks, it's this useful thing, and so the fact that that his whole plan to bombard Lothal and stamp out rebellion there, it's foiled by these giant space whales who Ezra was able to connect with and connect to and carry them off to Peridia. So it's Thrawn's an example of it being a tool, and that it being just of the Force being merely a tool, and that is actually where the story is able to hinge on his defeat. Well, his defeat how do I want to say that his defeat is able to hinge on the Force. Well, maybe we'll see what happens with with Luke and Ahsoka and whoever else coming down. But
sisters.
Yeah. And then the Night Sisters, who may be all, what did you do to our sisters here?
I mean, look at the way he treated the temple.
Yeah.
I don't remember if you remember the final episode of Ahsoka, but it's like, Thrawn's like, just destroy the temple.
Yeah.
And they're like, what?
So who knows? Because, I mean, that's the thing about Night Sisters. Their allegiances are all over the place. So.
I mean, they believe in the Force or the magics of Dathomir. Yeah. So they're clear. They have a religious faith tradition to them. It might be dark side, but it's still, that's still faith.
Maybe. I mean, what happens with Merrin, for example? How does she's still thoroughly dark side or thoroughly Night Sister, but she's not. I don't think she's dark side. And the reason I don't think that is because she chooses the good and chooses heroism. That's the definition there. So, yeah, I mean, she's not a normie, but she's also not a Jedi, very clearly. So,
right. I also think that, kind of to get to maybe one of the last points, it's all about respect. About respect, where on the good guy side, during the original trilogy, one of the reasons why Han and Luke obviously are allies, they're friends, but also it's like, I don't think Luke ever cared that much if Han was like a believer or not. Because at the end of the day, Luke respected Han enough to know Han's a good guy.
Yeah,
he's a good guy, and Han, I think he will always kind of tease and kind of roll his eyes maybe a couple of times. It's like, I think he did that out of just to his friend, but I don't think he would ever mock Luke for like, oh, you believe in this crud? Like, we're not friends. I think, I think Han had enough respect for Luke. Like, look, kid, I don't understand it, but like, I guess it's important to you. Okay. Even when he, like, too, he's like, Luke's a Jedi now. It's like, Han's like, a Jedi? I'm on it for a little while, and everyone got delusions of grandeur.
Yeah.
But, obviously, Han still loves Luke regardless of whether or not he ever would believe in the Force or not. And I think that is one of the big differences between the good guys and bad guys. Like, I think the good guys can still kind of, weirdly, even if they are all Force atheists, still kind of fought for a common good. Even if Han Solo never believed in the Force in his life, and was still friends with Luke Skywalker.
Yeah,
it's like if you're an atheist who's friends with the priest, that sounds like a sitcom waiting to happen.
Sounds like a lot of my life, actually. But not that I'm a priest, but you know what I mean. Yeah. Well, so it's interesting. The first moment we see them, right? Well, not the first moment, but the moment Hoka religions. Whatever, no
match for a good blaster.
No match for a good blaster. I do know that line. Don't worry, people. Or no match for a good blaster. Luke kind of rolls his eyes and is like, "What? You don't believe in the Force?" That's
I've seen a lot of strange stuff. I don't believe
well, and so my point there is, you know, Luke's journey into it is new, and so it's kind of sensitive and fragile, and good that Obi-Wan has to step in and say, "Okay, just keep on your training. Don't worry about what he's saying. Ignore that guy." And also because the friendship is new. It's not even a friendship at that point. It's a business arrangement. And so, yeah, that's a good point. That respect that develops to say, that's this is something I would say is very light side and something we're all called to. That was a very churchy word, we're all called to. But you know what I mean there? To say this is meaningful to you, and therefore I'll respect it because I respect you. That's how we dialogue. To be able to have conversations that have a deeper understanding about where someone is coming from, different convictions. Yeah, there are some things where some conversations that can't happen. Someone, I wouldn't expect a trans person to sit down with J.K. Rowling and listen to what she thinks and believes and why. That would not be safe.
No.
But I want to know what hurt she's expressing, what fear she's expressing, because I can be in a place to dialogue about that. And I think I mentioned that. I don't know if I mentioned that here. Oh yeah, maybe I did. I think again. Well, that's what I mentioned with the political episode. Democracy and a healthy society requires people to be able to actually respect and listen and hear the pain behind some terrible beliefs and actually tease that out and say, actually, that's where we can actually come to a place of your fear, something really did happen in your past. This is not that. And that healing and growth can come through there.
Unless you're Palpatine, which exactly you're probably just
right. But Palpatine isn't a real character. That's the thing.
Palpatine I don't know. I think we got some real Palpatines in the real world. I think there are some real.
Well, no, as in universe, he's not a character in the same way as Anakin is.
Right? That's true.
He's a plot device. And that's fine. He's the greatest plot device ever. He's the mustache twirling villain, right? But
that's always
and a foil. He's the thing. He's the foil for Vader, for Anakin's transformation, Anakin's return through Luke's selflessness.
Well, I don't know. I think there are just some people in the real world who are just evil and probably need to go away.
Yeah, I think there are people whose minds are so ingrained in a certain direction. Yeah. But
J.K. Rowling probably one of the people who's probably too late for them. I think they're.
I don't know. Frankly, you know what? I don't know about that. I think the stories she's written about growth and transformation and coming together and respecting people, there's got to be something. I think there's something in there. There's a reason that story's tapped in. But how does that come about? Maybe she needs to deactivate her Twitter account. I don't think that's going to happen. But,
With all her money.
Yes.
Hey, being a billionaire doesn't help.
Well, I can think of only one billionaire who I don't mind, but
I even changed him a little bit too. But maybe not drastic, but actually I've heard stories. He did change him a little bit, not terribly, thankfully, but everybody changes when they get money. I'll just say that.
It's true. Yeah.
It's true and sad. True and sad. I'm trying to think of anything else to talk about when it comes to normies.
Mm-hmm.
The Church of the Force.
Yeah.
We don't see a lot of local temples or religious places, right? Where do if I lived on like Naboo, is there like a local church area where you pray the Force or something?
I
Are
mean,
there past? I mean, I guess there are priests because Anakin and Padme
yeah,
got married by a priest.
I was gonna say that. Yeah, we don't know anything about that.
What's his story? What's his story? I want to know him.
But also, I mean, here's another thing we see in the High Republic. Again, maybe I mentioned this last week. Like in Dara, hanging out at the local noodle shop. That's another thing about the changing relationship of normies with the Jedi
She gives
and the
sermons.
Force. She's just there, present in the community, right? Um, the the temple on that other planet that they go to, where Chimera gives May the poison, right? Um, the temple's there. They're hanging out. They're around. Um, we see this in High Republic all the time. Just folks, even in Young Jedi Adventures, where there's that episode where they're on Batuu doing that demonstration. Yeah, it's a fun little spectacle, but also it's kind of morale and presence in the community. That's another thing, and that's the thing with the Great Retreat to Coruscant is that we see. I mean, especially for example, with Quen, how that they just aren't able to know what's going on. That's the thing. Living Force goes into their inability to know how people are suffering,
Are
or
there non-Jedi religious priests though? Like I don't know, like does
yeah,
everything religious have to be Jedi centric? What about just
no,
some
yeah, no, there
random
doesn't.
pastor wants to
They
just
don't.
set up a
But
church and go?
what I'm talking about though, just local presence, and that's the thing
Force.
is with Quen, for example, or well, not just Quen, but the one before that does get closed down. It's that the Jedi aren't able to hear what other people are how people are experiencing the galaxy and the change, the rise of these again, the rise of criminal organizations as the Republic dwindles in its ability to actually you know, protect and help people. Um, but also the Jedi, people aren't able to see the Jedi as people who are there for them and with them in the way that they were able to see it during the High Republic. I mean, that's the thing. There's a temple on Starlight Beacon, and that's the obvious thing to do. That the marshal is a Jedi, you know. Um, there's a civilian leadership, but it's also the marshal, and that again, that's part of the decline is that maybe if there's kind of a theme to this episode is in the High Republic the relationship was really vibrant and it's going to end up being part of how the nameless and denial are taken care of, however that is. That in over time and part of maybe Palpatine's plan or the thing that Palpatine sees and takes advantage of. I mean, we see that moment in the Living Force. Him taking advantage of the Jedi absence on Quen too. That wild moment I wasn't expecting. Um, that relationship gets soured or it just gets cold, grows cold to the point again with talking about Ahsoka with the Martez sisters, gets completely soured. And during the Clone War, generally, yeah, um, so that he can replace it with not faith in the dark side, but faith in the Empire, because that serves as this cover, this front for his own um, building of amassing of I mean, that's the thing. Maybe one of the things Palpatine's thinking is the entire purpose of the Empire is to resource the Final Order.
Oh, absolutely.
You know,
and his immortality.
Yeah, well, that's what the point of the Final Order is his immortality. It's just that he has to trick billions of people into thinking that the Empire is the point.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. That is actually completely canon. That is Rise and Fall of the Empire.
Yeah,
said that as such. So.
Well, yeah, that is it. So, yeah. But then again, I keep on thinking about the Rey film and the Kimberg film. What's the relationship they're going to be? And that's the thing we always end with is you know, with the Jedi, or with, well, the Jedi being down to one, the Jedi being almost unrecognizable. Who knows what that means? The term means, except that Rey has the books and she has, training from Leia. Here we go again with that. She is training from, uh, for a little bit from Luke. What's the relationship with the wider public, and are they ready to accept this idea of the Force as something that binds the galaxy together? Because that's, guess what? I don't think the Republic will, because I don't think the Republic really exists anymore. And so that's another interesting thing. I mean, there's a parallel. The Dark Ages are called the Dark Ages because the Roman Empire wasn't around to bind society together, but uh, you know, monastic communities, monks were able to do that, and traveling preachers, and to the point where the Pope was, Gregory the Great. He was the civil leader of Rome because there was no one else there to do it.
Right.
So I don't know if they're going to go in that direction, but
okay.
If anything, to say, medieval Europe, there wasn't a unified political structure, but there was this common belief and there was a common institution. And so, I'm wondering, in a microscopic scale, if the Jedi are going to be able to develop that. And it's only later that we have, things like the UN. Centuries later, we have things like the UN. And when the church recedes from public view, then we have the UN, and we have global market economies as well. But yeah, I mean, maybe even thinking now, the UN and its ability to really, I mean, yeah, there's a good criminal court ruling, but that's not universally upheld. And Yahoo's in Hungary, you know. Um,
US ain't enforcing that's for sure.
Yeah. Uh, you know, who can we turn to affirm our common humanity in fragmented times? I'd like to think, faith can be one of those things. I wonder if with Rey, that's going to be part of the message too. A very relevant message there is in fragmented post imperial, post first order time, post Republican, post first order time. Can people turn to the Force, not just the Jedi, but the Force, as a source of common, as the impetus to see, I guess you could say, common dignity? They're not all humans. Common dignity.
I'm down for that. Who knows, man? We're so far away from it. It's like, who knows at this point?
I know.
But I'm definitely down for that. Just think of any other characters. Oh, you know what? I know it's getting late, but I think we have to talk about one more normie character.
Sure.
Who I'm shocked I didn't think about, but we got to talk about them because they're very much in this odd camp. Talk about good old Shelly Afra, someone who deals with Force weirdness all her that's her career.
Yeah.
And what's her view? Does she believe in the Force as like a godly deity fate thing, or is there's just some weird stuff out there, and I've just seen it all. I've seen it all. I don't think it's real, but there's just some weird voodoo, weird bahoohickey stuff.
Yeah. Force Wars. Yeah, I mean, she's starts off very utilitarian. Very much, I gotta make a quick buck here. I that's this journey through the Spark Eternal, I really think has caused this shift, and I really hope it has. We don't know. We'll find out on Wednesday what kind of shift it maybe has. She's on the cover of the issue.
If she's in it for that much.
Yeah, I think she's gonna be pretty significant. Kind of in this. There's always this interesting tug and pull with Luke, push and pull with Luke, where sometimes they're collaborating, sometimes in this case she was tracking him because they're both looking for this artifact. Push and pull with Sana and Magna, who are rebels, full blown rebels. Now she's in with them too. It's interesting how I'm defining this as your belief in the light side, your belief in the Force, and your motivation then to serve the galaxy and to contribute to the well-being of others and the well-being of society. In this case, to helping you rebuild this new republic. Yeah, that'll be a good question. I mean, will she full on believe that? And that's the distinction. Maybe that's the distinction we're getting at. Some of different types of belief. Is it very instrumental, like we're saying with Thrawn, for example, or is it more existential? And I wonder if, like I was saying with this intelligence and this wisdom that guides the galaxy and unites it and supports for the sake of life. I wonder and I hope this experience with the Spark Eternal, everything she's encountered with Luke, even the Dark Droids thing a little bit. I hope she comes to at least some sense of, oh yeah, the order of the universe is actually towards justice and hope. So I'm going to actually find that too. But always being a little chaotic, right? She's always a little bit there. So that's also the tug and pull in her own personality. So it's a good question. We'll find out. Again, definitely for most of what we've seen of her, it's definitely instrumental. It's definitely about making a quick buck. I think some things have changed towards the end.
I wonder if she'll go full on Han Solo. Or it's like, I don't. Maybe more like Indiana Jones, where it's like Indy does the right thing if he never truly believes in whatever religion he's involved with this week.
I mean, she's definitely modeled after Indy in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
So maybe, I don't know. I can kind of see her going a bit more the Han Solo route, but more sardonic, more the Han Solo route in terms of maybe not having that kind of glowing belief moment, and maybe not trusting the New Republic as much, but still making better choices for others and for herself.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know what you think about that, but
I can see that. I mean, I think I don't think trusting the New Republic has anything to do with trying to be a good person and serving the Force.
And she'll say that. She'll make that point. And she can make that point. That'd be great.
Yeah. That's why Luke doesn't bother.
I mean, Din Djarin says that.
I mean, that is Din Djarin to a T. Like he doesn't.
Yeah.
I don't even understand the Force. He doesn't even know what a Jedi is. It's like I got this baby with powers. Yeah. I know I gotta take care of it and raise it in the ways of the Mando.
Yeah, and he also doesn't really believe in the New Republic either. But there's this guy, Carson Teva, kind of helping maybe change a bit of that. But Carson's also run into problems with the New Republic, so
he also doesn't necessarily understand the Force either. He's just like, what the heck is this Jason Syndulla kid doing?
Okay. Yeah, that's true.
So it's like he's probably more about the New Republic, but it's also like, I don't understand all this weird Forcey gunk. Why are we here again? What is the kid here? What's Ahsoka hearing?
Yeah, that's
right. I gotta make a excuse for Mom Mothma. Okay, So, I mean, even Hera. I mean, Hera gets it more with it because he really does.
Yeah, I mean, with Hera, that's her son,
right?
Is tapping into something, and so
even she tries to tap into it too. So
she does. Her son, her gentleman lover. And then her son later. Yeah, right. I think that also she's just more inclined to give him the time of day. Say, oh, maybe there is something going on here. You know, she's more than humoring him, right?
Oh yeah,
which is a great moment. I love that episode. It's so fantastic. Yeah.
All right. I think we covered everything we could about the Force and Normies. I think we covered the topic the way we wanted to. I enjoyed it.
Yeah. No, it was a great conversation. Kind of went in different directions. Bit freewheeling, less notes to rely, which is different. Why not? Because we got stuff in our noggin here. We got all the thoughts on our noggin, but yeah, that is a good point to wrap things up. Thanks everyone for checking in, for joining, for chiming in. Let us know what you thought of our conversation, what you thought of the Jedi and the Force and all these normies and all these different things we talked about. The differing relationships between normies and the Force and the Jedi and the Sith and all that. Also, let us know if you played the Outlaws DLC or watched it. Let us know what you thought of that. And Skeleton Crew coming up. Rise of Skywalker adaptation. Again, all these.
Is it in February?
It's February.
Okay, I heard summer and like, oh no, I've waited that long.
At least the Marvel.com announcement that I copied and pasted here. February.
Okay, well that's good.
So yeah. So check that out. Also check out our conversation on Tractor Beam on Wednesday all about that as well. Yeah, Joel, thanks again for this great conversation. Where can they find you on the internet?
Well, I'm still on Twitter at JD2021, JD2021 on Twitter. Also on Blue Sky. What is my Blue Sky? I always forget since it's so new. It's JD20320234. JID20234 Bisky.social. And of course, most of the time, I'm on the Star Wars Underworld Discord, where you can always find me, contact me, and talk. Join us.
Yeah, the water's fine. Speaking of jacuzzi water, pool water metaphors, there we go. You can find me on Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky, MNEUG1138. Blue Sky, MNEUG1138.bsky.social. And of course, Instagram is there. Twitter, yeah, I'm still there. NEUG485, still tweeting away. And yeah, on Instagram, also beaches.foodie. Check that out as well. Of course, at Iron Cannon Pod, EYEONCANONPOD on Instagram, Twitter, and Threads, and ironcannon.bisky.social. I'm just gonna say Bisky. I don't know if anyone else does that. Yeah, so please do check that out. Please check out Tractor Beam this Wednesday. I will be flying solo. Here it is correctly. Republic Under Siege 2, Dispatches from the Occlusion Zone 2, and Echoes of Fear #3. Looking forward to all three of those books. Will be fun to read.
I'm certainly reading Republic Under Siege, that's for sure.
There we go. So it'll be good time conversation with myself, I guess. We'll see what happens there. And then and everyone else, have a happy late Thanksgiving. If I don't see you, I know I call it late Thanksgiving because again, Thanksgiving is in October. Come on, guys. No, I'm just kidding. Happy Thanksgiving, and I hope you all have a good time with your families and whatnot. And check us out on the Discord. Next week, we are going to keep going. Episode 139 is where we're at. We're almost at 140. That's a good one. We're talking about, speaking of Thanksgiving, we're talking about holidays in Star Wars. We just had Life Day a week or so ago. We're going to talk about a bunch of other things. The Aki Festival, the Ancestors. Why not?
What do holidays mean in Star Wars?
What do holidays mean? What does it mean to, the continuing of this religions in Star Wars, holidays in Star Wars? Yeah, there's a connection there. So, yes, please do join us next week. Same Force time, same Force channel. Until then, Joel, let's build this thing and head home.